hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Good morning, Ekaro. Family, I am so happy to be back here with you on this Saturday live on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. This is Ascending. I am your host, April R. Silver. This is episode 4 that we're about to have a blast with today. Like, we need a positive blast. So, I want to give everybody a moment to get in the room. Please, like the last 3 episodes, tell us who you are. Tell us where you're from. We'll be able to see if you're a member or not, but let's go ahead and get everybody in the live chat and buckle up. This is going to be an amazing, amazing episode I'm really excited about. But first, you know how we do. We want to encourage people to really, really show your love, like make it demonstrative by subscribing to the channel, liking this video already, liking the other videos, and just thanking along with me, join me in thanking Marc Lamont Hill for this independent media platform that he's provided so powerfully. And let's thank him for real for giving me this opportunity to have this weekly live stream every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern. And the good news is you can watch it after, right? So tell your people in case you miss it, you can watch it immediately thereafter. So like, subscribe, comment, tell your people, share this. And if you're able, you can actually join the channel. You can do more than subscribe. You can join the channel by having a monthly contribution. That's for members, right? Of which I am one and have been since like day one. So that I definitely want to remind you about. So tell people. And then also, what is the other thing? Uh, Besides that, we want you to remember again every Saturday. But here's the spoiler: next Saturday, the 15th of February 2025, we have Mayor Raz J. Baraka, who's going to be a guest. So definitely tell people about that. And if you want to comment today, you can, but be respectful, be gracious, agree to disagree respectfully. There's room for that here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. So, with all of that out the way, I have one more piece that I want to share with you all. This is a special piece, and I think I might make this like a regular segment, right? A regular thing that I do. Given the times that we are in, the chaotic fuckery that's going on, for language alert for those who might be sensitive, but these are trying times. And I know with this channel, there are a lot of artists, there are a lot of activists, there are new people as well. But I know that creative spirit is yearning extra during the chaotic times that we live in here on this corner of the world, the United States. So I am holding up, and my producers, yeah, this is good. This is really good. So this book, I want to recommend for those who are trying to find their way in the world. This is a shameless plug that I know the boss man won't be mad at, but Create Dangerously, The Immigrant Artist at Work by Edward Danticott. You can find it at Uncle Bobby's. Shameless plug. Had to, sport my t-shirt. But find it, read it if you're looking for what I call smelling salt. The way that our dear sister Edwidge Danticott writes, for me, has long been like smelling salt, the thing that helps you get back to center and a certain level of consciousness and understanding and clarity of mind. I want to recommend, particularly for creative people, for the artists who are trying to create their art and survive during this chaotic time. So that's a real live, life saving plug that I think you'll appreciate. Dangerously by Edward Danticott. I've read it. I recommend you do the same. So, on that note, that's my way of supporting Black art, Black writers, and Black thought, right? On that note, I want to bring very, very shortly to the stage someone who I've known for quite some time. This person is not new to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. This person has been here before with Rhymefest, another friend of mine, and the folks at Aquila Work Songs. You've seen me with him maybe talking about reparations above and beyond the topic of reparations. You've probably seen him on any of the world stages as the master Grammy Award-winning percussionist that he is. You've seen him in the community with the institutions that he has built in the community and uplifting African traditional culture. You've probably seen him at the colleges and campuses and high schools and elementary schools, talking to young people, adults, and his peers about music, culture, and spirituality from an African lens. I have the pleasure of bringing this man into a conversation, and we're about to get into it. But he is my teacher, he is my client, he's my Babalao, he's my Aluo. So I would like to welcome to the stage, I'm so giddy right now, but Chief Ayanda Clarke. Welcome to Ascending on the
Thank you
Mark
so much.
YouTube channel.
Thank you
How
for
are you?
having me. I'm fantastic. It's good to see you. Act like I haven't seen you in so long. It hasn't been so long. But
Right.
for here, it's I'm glad to see you this morning.
Abura Aboye Baba.
Oh, Aguato.
So we have so much to talk about, and it's going to be funny to act like we haven't talked about these things before, right? But like-minded people, we find each other, right?
Absolutely.
So while there's a little bit of levity, there's a smile on my face, there's a smile in my heart, my spirit is joyful. But real talk, and you know this because you're dealing with this as people come to you for guidance, we're tired. We are hurting and I say we with a capital W, right? The communities here, Black folks in particular, progressive minded people all over the world, we're dealing with a level of political chaos and turmoil and bold chaos and disruption and demonic energy, I dare say, that's unfolding in broad daylight under the guise of government here in the United States with this new administration, the oligarchy that is unabashed. And there's some people who this is new to, like this understanding of how the world actually operates and where the power lies. For some people, it's a new understanding. For other people, like our elders or us or whomever, it's not new. We have historical context. We have stories of resilience, but it doesn't mean that this isn't hard. But there's no way to not say and acknowledge the chaos and the fear and the anxiety and the deaths that are at our doorstep, at our threshold because of this administration. And I'm focusing here within the borders here, but we know that there's a rippling effect internationally and globally. So we're going to talk about a lot, but I really wanted to start off and not be tone deaf. And I wanted you to bring a unique perspective. We have an abundance of scholars, of academics, of political thinkers, critical thinkers who are helping us to unpack and connect the dots historically and economically. We have people and activists and organizers who are providing roadmaps for how to organize and how to be active, right? And I'm sure that we have spiritual health counselors who are counseling. But I want your take as someone who is an African traditionalist, as someone who has built institutions here and abroad around our spiritual health and wellness from a traditional African perspective. I want you to start us off there in terms of what you say to people who are hurting at a deeper level when they come to you for spiritual guidance.
Yeah. Definitely want to acknowledge um, the validity and the significance of all that you've just articulated. And I want to highlight one component, and that is the component of tradition. And so let's think about what tradition is. Tradition is the handing down over time, from generation to generation, the handing down of values, of wisdom, of practices, of ideologies, of philosophies. That and the importance and significance there is that we're handing it down from generation to generation. So by considering and thinking about traditional ways, we're looking at the ways that those who have come before us have handled situations, have thought about situations, have processed situations. And of course, we know that history, those who don't understand history are doomed and condemned to repeat it. We understand that, we've heard that. And so the wisdom in traditional values and understandings um, offers us, and considering those traditional wisdoms gives us a chance to look back at what has been done before, and so that we can be prepared and ready and armed to handle what we're experiencing right now. So the tradition is the component that I want to focus on and want to highlight in what you just articulated. And to that point, um, I am Babalao, as you said, and a Babalao are the spiritual advisors and healers in Nigeria in the system of Ifa, and we are Onisheshe alongside of Onisheshe means those who hold the tradition. We are Onisheshe alongside with Olorisha of Oje Gungun practitioners, ancestral, those who tend to the ancestral component. And what we understand is two important um, philosophical frameworks. One is hope. One is hope. One who loses hope sees no possibility for the future, sees no possibility for moving forward in the future. So we have to always maintain hope. We have to always maintain the and leave room for the imaginings of a future that is better, that is healthier, that is progressive. We have to always leave room for that. And though right now we might not see how to get from here to there, but we have to always maintain hope. If we lose hope, then we lose the vitality, we lose the strength, we lose the motivation, we lose the ability to persevere and move past where we are to where we want to be. So hope is important. The other thing that's important is balance. Balance. And in this time, what we cannot do, I tell everyone who chooses to listen to my words and gives me the honor of speaking with them, I say that we can't panic. Do not panic. Do not panic. If we panic, we lose critical thought. We become reactive instead of proactive. We um, we become reactionary and we lose intentionality. So we have an idea, a saying, a concept of stillness. We call it like alafia, or we call it aiku, longevity. And the idea is, if we imagine a still pond, if we're at the shores of a still pond, and this is a good thing for some of us when we get into those moments where we feel tense, we feel stressed. Imagine going up to a still pond. At the shore of that pond, the water is still, the water is tranquil, and we take a pebble and we throw that pebble into that pond. The pebble will hit the surface of the water and we'll see ripples, right? And if we throw a small pebble, we'll see some ripples. If we throw a larger rock, we'll see more ripples. If we throw a boulder, we'll displace that water tremendously. And if we think of the throwing of that rock or that pebble or that boulder as an action, as an actionary step, something that we're doing, if we think of it in that way, then if we take a small step or take a small action, we'll see rippling effects. If we throw a rock and take a bigger action, we'll see more effects. So those ripples are akin to the effect of the action that we're taking. But the challenge is if that water, if that pond is not still, if it's tumultuous, if the wind is blowing and the storm is brewing, then you can throw that same pebble in that pond and you won't see the effects. You won't recognize the effects because this pond is not still. So in order to see the effects of what we do, we need to maintain stillness so that we can assess the effectiveness of that which we are doing. So in these times, the maintenance of balance, sometimes we get overwhelmed by all that we're seeing. Every 2 minutes, every 3 minutes, every half hour, we're seeing, we're hearing, we're getting notifications of some ridiculousness from the government, from the administration, and we can be bombarded with that, creating tumultuous waters within us. So then we don't see the effects of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to make happen. So stillness, not becoming overwhelmed, not panicking, seeking guidance from those elders, from the traditional practices, from those who have come before us. We have scholars, like you said, we have scholars, we have activists who have been here before. This is not new, right? We've been here before. If we look back to 2016, we were thinking, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this ridiculousness? And we got through that ridiculousness. And if we look back to the when you had the amazing Sonia Sanchez on with us. If we look back to what was happening in the 60s, there was ridiculousness, there was evil, there was, as you said, demonic practices at work. And we collectively, the capital we, as you said, found our way through with guidance, with support, with intentionality. We will get past this. We will get through this if we maintain, not if, as we maintain our hope, as we maintain our balance, as we make choices and decisions to center community. We stick together, we support one another. This is not the time to be Lone Ranger, to be going off a Don Quixote and try to to take down the windmills with our lance. This is not that time. This is the time for us to gather collectively, stay together, protect one another, and live in a state of balance, live in a state of purposeful thought, and maintain hope.
I believe you. I believe you. I know it to be true, right? I did a post, and we've talked about this before. You can have the hope, you can have your meditative practices, you can find a way, and stuff is still hard. There's some clarity and maturity to be able to say this is hard as, you know what I mean? That's real. And we've talked about that. There's it's important to say that. I want to see if we can I get you to concretize this concept of hope even more? Because what's going on in my head, bear with me, are people who can hear what you're saying. They probably heard it before, and still don't know how to make it concrete, where hope becomes this conceptual thing. But like, what do you mean have hope? Have you watched the news? Like, what hope? You understand what I'm saying? What do you mean balance? You gave a really excellent example, but if anybody who I know can make it concrete even more, because for some people, especially, Baba, as you know, when you're freaking out, those words are like going over. You know what I mean? So if you could, if I can pass that to you before we go on to other topics, you follow what I'm asking?
I do, I do, I do. The enemy is the freak out. The enemy is the freak out. The enemy is we know the enemy that's outside of us. We know the enemy that we're facing, that's the other. But the enemy that's inside of us, the freak out, is the thing that creates, that's the most dangerous for us, right? The freak out, because that freak out prevents you, prevents us, prevents one from living in the state of gratitude. So gratitude, in being grateful for that, I woke up this morning. I took the breath of life in my lungs. I have the opportunity to make today a better day than yesterday. That's real. That's real. And I say that to myself every morning. And because I say that to myself every morning, whatever I'm getting ready to face this day, I start out by saying, I reset myself every morning and say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Why is that important? Because if we do not do that, we become overwhelmed. We become overwhelmed, and that overwhelming state puts us in a freeze. And that freeze is that freeze comes from inside. That immobility, that inability to move and progress and take the steps to make today successful, that comes from inside. And so if we wage the battle, if we're waging a battle inside and outside at the same time, we lose. We lose. So the freak out, my advice to people that come to me is avoid, first and foremost, avoid the freak out, because we know the battle that's waging, that we're dealing with outside. We know it. It's clear. And we're grateful. I'm grateful that I see it. I'm grateful that it's coming to the surface. It's always been here. It's always been here. Those you said, you articulated before that this may be new for some people. Well, I'm grateful. I have an 18-year-old son. I'm grateful that he's able to see what's happening right now. Right. I'm grateful that he's able to see it. He's not 18. He's 20. What am I talking about? Um,
I was going to
I,
say,
that's me.
Shout out to Apple
Ah,
Lobby.
ah, that's me trying to keep him at 18, but he's not. He's 20. And so he's getting to see. He's recognizing that which has always been here. And the conversations I'm having with him, he's asking me, how do I not um, stay angry 24/7? And I'm able to say, well, I lived through the Rodney King verdicts. Lived through the LA burning, and I felt that same anger that you are feeling right now, son. I felt that same anger, and that anger that made me want to run out into the streets. Anger that made me want to ask why. What do I do? I felt it, and my father and my mother felt it in the '60s, and my grandmother felt it in the 30s and the 40s, right? So it's real. We acknowledge it. But if we panic, if we lose that balance, then the war within is going to make the war without um, more daunting.
Right, right. I know we have a lot to go over, but now you've made me think about spiritual health, mental health,
Mhm,
physical health, right?
mhm.
There's no, can you elaborate on this that I'm about to put forth? One affects the other. You're not going to have spiritual health, well, or better said, there's an intertwining, to use your phrase, and it is, we do ourselves a favor when we recognize that one impacts the other. So yes, one can go to a babalao or ianifa, one can go to a priest or whatever and seek the spiritual counseling, and it doesn't mean that they don't have a psychologist that they go to. It doesn't mean that they don't tap into their friend who's a nutritionist that will help them to, the food, things. It doesn't mean that they don't go to an aromatherapist. Like, can you talk about those integrative practices, so that we don't think that going to one place is the remedy, but we have multiple tiers. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you know the importance of holistic health um, um, from a traditional practice. So the Babalao, the Anifa, the Onisese, they were the spiritual health counselors, but they were also the psychologists. They were also the herbalists. They are also the midwives. They are the ones who delivered the children. They are the ones who prescribe the medicines. So within the concept of Ifa, which is the wisdom of from a Yoruba, a Nigerian, a Yoruba perspective from Nigeria, the understanding of Ifa is the wisdom that is all around us. And that wisdom has been broken apart into and dispersed throughout the natural environment around us. So we find the wisdom in the water, we find the wisdom in the words, we find the wisdom in the art, we find the wisdom in the prayers, we find the wisdom all in the music, we find the wisdom all around us. So the idea of thinking of mind, body, and spirit, that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, that idea, and the mind being the bridge between the body and the spirit, thinking of our health in terms of all of those aspects, mind, body, and spirit, is ultimately important. We created at Ile Oturupon Sokun, we created the Integrated
Look,
Wealth Alliance.
Baba, I wanna
Yes.
you said that so smoothly, Elaine.
Yeah. I'm listening.
Just Elaine, what is that? I gotta act like I don't know.
Oh,
What
yeah.
is that? Elaine,
Yes.
what?
Yeah, Ile Oturupon Sokun is our Ifa temple based in Brooklyn. It's a collective of individuals who are seeking to understand, primarily understand ourselves as we relate to the world around us. Understand ourselves, understand our destiny, understand our mission, understand our purpose. And we come together under the umbrella of Ile Oturupon Sokun. Um, that is an Odu Ifa. That is a branch, aspect of Ifa that governs our temple and our spiritual home. And so we are a collective, and we collectively created the Integrated Wealth Alliance, which is an initiative that brings practitioners, advocates of health in all its forms, acupuncturists, spiritual health counselors, mental health practitioners, sound healers, herbalists, educators,
Tea
bring
specialist.
us, yes, communication specialists.
No, and
Um,
tea.
yes,
Can
tea
we?
special. Well, it's the I said the herb because
Oh,
we know
yes.
that those herbs are used to, we imbibe them, we drink them, we use them for aromatherapy, we infuse them in our soaps, right? So all of the aspects and all the uses of herbs are important. And and the reason we call ourselves the Integrated Wealth Alliance is because the traditional understanding of what is wealth. What is wealth? Wealth is good living and a quality of life. And that quality of life depends on our resources, not just financial resources, but the resources of wisdom, the resources of support, the resources of healing, mechanism and modalities. And so the Integrated Wealth Alliance is our way to affirm for our community the holistic health practices and the ways that linking mind, body, and spirit, the ways that addressing the needs of mind, body, and spirit allow us to be whole and complete, and then empower us, give us the vitality that we need to throw those pebbles into the pond and make the steps that allow us to see change in our lives and in our community. So even the activists amongst us, we know that the people on the front lines, we need to take care of them. They need to take care of themselves, right?
Mhm.
And so the idea of mind, body, spirit, addressing the whole person, the whole human experience is important there.
Yeah, we talked about that last 2 weeks ago with Sonia Sanchez, and I was sharing how several years ago I went to Puerto Rico just by myself, and I made it. I invested so much in that trip, and when I told her I was going, she got so excited. She was like, "You're going to take a rest? You're going on vacation? Good for you!" And we had a whole conversation about how her generation did not do that. As a matter of fact, you were judged if you took a break, if you took a retreat. And she said, April, that's one of the things we got wrong. So I just wanted to highlight that and plug for people to go back and watch that watch that video. But I want to segue, right, because you talked about sound healing. You talked about the integrative practices. So beyond the wisdom that you are connected to and that you share as a Babalao, you're a Grammy Award-winning master percussionist, a Grammy Award-winning master percussionist who your peers, juniors, and elders have often said and identified you as the best all-around percussionist of your generation. I might add, you're a second generation master percussionist, right? So you've been immersed in music as a whole, particularly the African drum. Can you talk about one, just give us a little bit of history there, because I'm mindful of the time, but we have time because Mark said so. But talk about that. But then also, I want you to, here's my ignorance. I'm gonna just put it out there. As much as I love music and African music, I did not know, don't laugh, that there's a difference between Afrobeat and Afrobeats, plural. So give us a little bit about your relationship to the African drum, just a little. And then let's talk about this explosion of African music on the global stage. I should say re-explosion, maybe, or the re-emergence, not like it's new. So I want to turn that part over to you.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing. I'm first of all, I'm excited about where African music is currently. I'm really excited, and it's primarily because I've you know how you're one of those people that's like, I knew it all along, right? So literally, like real talk, I've known this all along. My name Ayanda means born from the spirit of the drum. As you said, I am a second generation African American percussionist. So when I
Shout,
was born,
shout out to Chief Baba Neil Clark.
yes, shout out to Chief Baba Neil Clarke. And if we shout out Chief Baba Neil Clarke, we have to shout out Iyanifa, Patricia de Gazon Clarke. We have to do it. And so this
Absolutely.
story is going to even tell you a little bit why that's so important. Because Iya is a boss. Iya, my mother, is a boss. My name, as some people have heard me say before, but it's relevant to this conversation right now, because I was born to the sound of the drum. Right, I was born at home. My mother gave birth to all of her children at home, with the support of a traditional midwife. Shout out to Nana Ansa Ibaye. And she birthed all of us. When I was coming into the world, in the next room, Baba, my father's contemporaries and peers and family, were in the other room playing drums. So I was born to the sound of the African drum. Why is that important? It's important because I don't know a time where I didn't understand the importance and significance of the drum, of the African drum, of the traditional African drum. And so to speak to the explosion of African music now, I knew it. We knew it. The diaspora has known it. Baba, my father, Chief Baba Neil Clarke, was the percussionist for Mr. Harry Belafonte, who focused on Caribbean and calypso music. He came to fame playing calypso and Caribbean music, which had the sound of the drum. It was African diasporic music. And he went on to play jazz with the great Randy Weston, who Ibaye, who has transitioned, and he played jazz music, which is an expression of African diasporic music. It contained the essence of African rhythm, African sensibility, African musicality, in addition to Western music and philosophy, but at its core, it's an expression of African diasporic music. So throughout the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, African popular music has always been present. It's just some of us, some of them, I'm not the us in that regard, some of them were not aware of it, right? And so when we look to the difference between Afro beats and Afrobeat, we have to look to the great Fela Anikulapo Kuti, Nigerian musician who was listening to James Brown, who was listening to the music coming out of Cuba, again, the African diaspora, and he was incorporating his traditional Nigerian music, juju music, Fuji music, and those ideologies into and with the music of Cuba and the music of funk and soul with James Brown. And so he created a unique sound that was coined Afrobeat. That was that was the precursor, the grandfather of what we now know as Afro beats, which is African popular music coming out of Nigeria and Ghana. Now, it's important for us to understand that Africa is a country that's a country is a you hear me, right? Africa is a continent that has 54 countries. I'm laughing because everybody's like, oh, Africa's a country. Africa's a country. It's filled with lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, all of that, right? But but is that is not an accurate understanding and reflection of the scope, of the breadth, of the cultural vibrancy of Africa. Africa. So the music of Africa cannot just be, oh, Afro beats is the only music in only popular music in Africa. No, we have Amapiano that comes from the southern parts of Africa. We have music that comes from Cameroon and Balak from Senegal and Makossa was from Congo. We have all of these vibrant essences of African expressions of African music over the generations, over decades, that people were not exposed to. But right now, because of the way technology works, because of the way technology has spread in Africa, and people are now being able to be responsible for exporting their own cultural creations and their own cultural and creative um, expressions. Now the world is starting to hear it and get exposed to it, and the democratization of music and the expressions of music helps to break through some of these record labels, right?
Mm.
That were responsible for keeping things in boxes. And so when we're exposed to the truth, everybody recognizes it as the truth. When you put the truth on the table, you recognize it. So
Where
you
have I heard
can't
that before?
it's EFI practice, it's EFI ideology. When you put the truth on the table, everyone, if you look at it, you know what it is. If you hear this music, you're gonna move, right? And that what's making us move is the essence of African diaspora, African rhythm that is ingrained inside of the music. So we're not
And
surprised.
we're not surprised, right? And those who are getting their fill now, they won't be surprised when it expands even further, right? So, but
It's a
I
takeover.
it's a takeover
It's a takeover
again.
again.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
it's
It's
a
our
it's
version. Yo, Baba, for real. Can you share what we talked about the other day? Because it's this is just off the top of my head, but I'd like you to share what we talked about with Wole Soyinka regarding how things spread when we as Africans do it. Remember the conversation we had
I
versus
do
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the great Wole Soyinka, African author, scholar,
Yoruba man.
playwright, Yoruba man, yes. He spoke to, and he had right now it's become, his conversation has become unearthed, and he was speaking about um, the Ifa practice. Some people call it religion. I'm less inclined to call it religion. I look at Ifa, the Yoruba spiritual philosophy, as a lifestyle, as a philosophical a way of life, a philosophical expression of spirituality. So I shy away from the term religion. But Wole Soyinka was speaking to Ifa and Orisha religion as the only expression of religion that did not have a war, that did not rely on war and conflict in order to spread it. That it was not, there was no jihad, or there was no uh, crusade,
Crusade.
right, needed in order to spread the understanding of Orisha practice. Um, that it spread amongst people who were seeking deeper levels of understanding, and were seeking a reconnection with their spiritual and cultural heritage and their identity. And so it doesn't take fighting, it doesn't take conflict, it doesn't take military action in order to spread that which is positive. What's positive spreads organically. And so this rise of African music and this understanding of African identity and identifying ourselves as African diasporic, it organically spreads among people who are thinkers and who realize, wait a second, this division that has been purposefully and intentionally positioned to separate people of 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 African descent from one another in an attempt to isolate and control. What happens when we break those walls down? Then those people come together and we realize the similarities, we realize the shared experiences, we realize the shared cultural heritage, not negating the individual experiences that we've had, right? So we never choose and we never can ignore the points of divergence and the points where our stories have branched off and into different experiences. But when we can understand that there is a cultural connection, there is a spiritual connection, then it allows us to come together and unite. And then the takeover is real. Then the takeover is
Yes,
real.
it's real. It's real and it's here and being unearthed. Our elders have taught us, woe is the person, I'm paraphrasing, don't laugh, but woe is the person who thinks that being African is dictated by geographical boundaries. You know what I mean? Because you'll always find people like my people from Alabama. My mother's parents are from Alabama, right? And my father's family, shout out to the McCullers and to the Silvers, are from Virginia. I happen to know, shout out to African ancestry, that on my mother's side, we're from Sierra Leone. And on my father's side, we're from Gabon. Like, yes, we are from here in the United States, but we have lineages that go back. So, what was the person who only tries to identify or thinks that being African is bound by these real and simultaneously artificial geographical borders? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm at my core, I'm Pan African, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
That
and yeah, but it's important to recognize that identity doesn't have to be reductive, right?
hmm
It doesn't have to reduce us. Yeah, we can be from Alabama, or we can be from St. Lucia, and we can be from St. Kitts, and we can be from Mississippi. We can be from those places, and we can have those experiences and acknowledge what our ancestors who were in those places went through, overcame, and the ways that they were victorious. And we can celebrate that and celebrate that before they were there, they were someplace else, right?
right.
And before the colonization and before the atrocities of the transatlantic slave trade, there were there was a history, and there were experiences that we had. There was humanity, there was nation building, there were whole
There were
communities that were
and
vibrant,
families and
and
sons who
families.
love their parents and children who love their elders and we cooked together, like all of that.
And when we look at what we did in St. Lucia and St. Kitts, and we look at what we did in Alabama and Mississippi, then we can see and we can trace the remnants of the cultural expressions that were in Africa. We can look at what gumbo is, and we can look at the cuisine, and we can look at the seasoning. Like, wherever we are, there got to be seasoning, and it
Not
has
too
to be
spicy,
seasoning.
not too spicy for me. Don't
I
laugh.
don't know. Depends. That's a matter of taste. But it's always has seasoning. There's
Yeah.
flavor in the
Yes.
food,
Yes.
right? And that we can look back to. There's some groups of people who season things the same way, and how ironic is it that people who use the same kinds of seasonings all have a a similar um, uh, tint to our skin tone, right? Like, I'm being real diplomatic right here, right? I'm being
No
real
need to.
diplomatic,
No need
but
to. No need to.
no need to. We're at home. We're on the Marc Lamont Hill YouTube channel. We can keep it real, right? The melanated people behave in certain ways. People who are the African diaspora, and for that reason, I'm Pan African, right? And we look at the expressions of culture and cuisine and food and values and aesthetics throughout the African diaspora, and we
Uh,
can trace that back to
we have
an
we have
understanding.
our beloved is frozen in time. So there you go. You're back.
Am I frozen? Am I back?
Not anymore. You're never frozen ever. So
There was a glitch in the matrix. They trying to shut it down. They
they're
can't.
trying to
We
shut it
will. We
down.
will
We're not having that.
persevere.
We're not
We're not
having that.
having it. We will persevere.
But we got you. We got you because you were basically talking about the Pan African, the value and the respect that we would do ourselves a favor to uplift Pan African values. But let me ask you this: particularly while this banner is on the screen, and we're going to close out in just a second. Um, Everything that you're talking about is a recognition of contemporary Africa, traditional Africa, modern day Africa, and so forth. However, we still have a dominant view, not for everyone, but for a lot of people in the world, that Africa is really, talk about reductive, is about giraffes and elephants and tigers and people, going through the safari in the wilderness and jeeps and taking pictures. We don't see life oftentimes. Like, in what ways, succinctly, and then I'm gonna have one more question for you to close out on. But how do we get to Africa beyond the safari, beyond the
Yeah.
wilderness, behind this, like, it's just the giraffes with the sunset in the background, the color of your hat, and it's all. How do we get past that?
Yeah, we have to get past that. First, we have to get past that. Um, uh, because the images that we see have been fed to us, right? So the images we see have been fed before we focus on the giraffes. And it's funny you said tigers. We all know there's no tigers in Africa. There's not a single tiger in Africa, right? But the idea of we joked before about that lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, the oh my is a part, right? Because by us focusing on the exotic and the animals, by focusing on the animals, you don't focus on the people, right? When you focus on the animals, you don't focus. So if you go and thinking Africa is about the safari, what about the people? And when I um, think about my trips to Africa, and when the people that I know make the pilgrimage back to Africa, it's not the animals that they refer to, it's the people, it's the culture, it's the feeling of home, it's the feeling of similarity, and it's the expression of humanity in those people that they see in themselves. And that's the importance of moving beyond the safari. Yes, nature is beautiful. Yeah, but so are the people that are living there, that have lived there, that have maintained the harmonious relationship with the nature that's around them, and that have built the cities, the bustling metropolises of commerce, the financial centers of the continent, the cultural expressions, the music, the food, the vibrancy of the people. Those are the elements that I wish to focus on and highlight. And we started something at the Fadara Group. I know you're going to ask me, what's the Fadara Group? The Fadara Group is the organization that I founded, where we intertwine and talk about and promote the music, culture, and spirituality. And we talk about and focus on the way that they intertwine. And the Fadara Group started a lecture series. It's more than a lecture series. It's a multi-dimensional love of Africa and things African, and it's called True to Our Native Land, and it's purposefully connecting to the last line of the Black National Anthem, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." And what it's intended to do is speak honestly about what Africa is, what African culture is, contemporary African culture and traditional African culture. And so right now, we just came back from a long journey in Nigeria, and
Y'all can
I
pull
didn't
me.
see a single I didn't see a single elephant. There's no elephant. I didn't see an elephant. I didn't see a giraffe, but I saw a lot of people. I saw a lot of family. I saw families. I saw activists. I saw artists. I saw spiritual health counselors. I saw business people. I saw economic and development. And that's the true nature of Africa, and in all of its 54 countries, right? Thousands of ethnic groups, thousands of languages spoken, in its diversity, right? So we're not trying to minimize the depth and diversity within the continent of Africa, but what we're looking at is that none of it can be relegated to lions, tigers, bears, giraffes, and Hakuna Matatas on screen, right? Like let's not think
or
that that's all
kumbaya
it is.
moments, right? Or kumbaya
Kumbaya
moments.
and funga alafia and all of the reductive
Ashe.
and
I,
well, ashe is real, but don't
I
be
know,
putting
I
ashe,
know, I know.
as they say, don't be putting ashe everywhere. Put some respect on that word.
No, it's levity. It's levity,
Yeah,
but it's
has to be.
reflective. It's reflective. But I got one more question. And
I'm listening.
y'all tell Mark in the comments that you like this, right? Because he's gonna be like, yo, why? Why is it 60 minutes on one person? No, he's not gonna do that. But real talk, what do you say to people who are like, I'm African, I know it, and I don't have to dress like that? You know what I mean? I can be my own African. I don't have to go to the continent. I don't have to study Ifa or Vodun or any of that. I don't have to wear fila. I called it a hat, but I know in Yoruba language, what you have on your head is called fila. I don't have to do any of
Correct.
that. And I would dare say, you tell me that you would agree. And there's another way to look at it as well. So can you speak to those who are seemingly pro-African but don't want to embrace? And this is not a judgment, assessment, but just speak to those who might be resistant to a full expression of Africanness. You understand what I'm
Yeah,
asking?
I
Okay.
do. I do. In your question, you said you articulated two things. You
Okay.
said, what would I say to people who say I don't have to? And then in the question, there was those who are resistant. Those are
Mm,
two different things, right?
okay.
So do you have to? You don't have to. You don't have to. But to be
Wear a
resistant,
fila
why?
or all
Right?
of
You
that.
don't have to wear fila. You don't have to study Ifa. You don't have to subscribe to African traditional religious practices. You don't have to eat African food. You don't have to do any of those things. But when you say you're resistant, the question is, why are you resistant? What is the reason for the resistance? Is the resistance because of a brainwashing about value? Is the resistance because it's because you are rejecting what it means to be, right? And so I don't know what the resistance is, but what I would say is wearing a fila, wearing African clothing, not as a costume, but as every day, right?
That part.
This is you'll see me more often in an Ankara fabric, and I'll rock my Kango, but I'll rock it with an African Ankara fabric because I feel uplifted by acknowledging my heritage. I feel uplifted by acknowledging the culture and the cultural expressions that have made me who I am. And so I choose to represent those things. And what we start to recognize is there was a video. I won't digress, but there's a video of um, some young women who were traveling abroad, and they were from different parts of the African diaspora, and they were marveling at the hand games that we play, right? The che, not che kule, the I don't want to go to Mexico, the more, all of the hand games, the all of those things that, shout out to my sister Pajoke, we used to do those things, and we're marveling at the similarities of those hand games and the ways that they knew the same games. They had different words, but they knew the same games. And they were able to come together and connect in that way, unite in that way, because they maintained the traditions. They were expressive of those traditions. So when I go back to Nigeria, and I talk to my brethren and my sisterin who may not understand the complexities of the transatlantic slave trade from their understanding, and I tell them my experience and tell them I'm not Oyimbo. I'm black like you're black, right? Oyimbo is a word that has come to mean outsider or foreigner, or those with white skin, right? European. I'm not Oyimbo. I might be, my complexion might be fairer than yours, right? Might be a different hue than yours, but we are the same. And by connecting in that way, then we start to see the cultural connections as well. And then we can have the political connections, and then we can have the economic connections, and then we can contribute to the takeover. So I would say, don't reject and resist the African in African American, or in Afro Caribbean, or in Afro European. Don't disconnect from those, right? Let's look to use that as a form of uh, mechanism to unite.
Yes, I would agree. You're making me think, and I'll close out. The very first time I went to the continent, I was a whole grown ass woman, right? And everybody, when I was in college, people were like, "You haven't been yet? It looks like you would have been." All judgmental and whatnot. But I hadn't been until like 2013, and I was a guest speaker. I did a keynote at American University in Yola, right?
Mhm.
Way on the other side of the country, in Nigeria, but way on the other side. And the level of what's the word I wanna say? The connection with the people was real. And these are students, right? These are students who I went there to talk about arts and activism. Shout out to Kevin Powell who helped me get there. I went to talk about arts and activism. And all of those students rather, at American University in Yola were there to get their degrees in business. And so, how is it that someone is going to talk about the arts? And they said, Miss Silver, we don't, we like to sing. They asked me all about the music or whatever, but we don't talk about that. We're not here. There's no Saturday. There's no drumming class on Saturday. You know what I mean? There's none of that. And so I had the opportunity to connect to their desire to be creative and active, even though their parents were like, I need you to go get your degree so you could take over the family business. Don't come talking about that artist stuff that you want to sing or dance or do. Like, we hear that here, but it was a bit worse there. But the moment there was an opportunity and we had a whole platform to help them create and tap into that creativity, and it was like, again, the phrase smelling salt. They were like, whoa, somebody recognizes the artist in me. I can put down the engineering book. It was just, I'm not doing it justice, but it was a wonderful connection, heart to heart, soul to soul, with people who just wanted to flourish with their creativity and art. And so that connection with the people is so deeply, deeply real. You can't put words to it, really and truly.
We have to acknowledge that the separation and the devaluing of African culture was purposeful. It's
Yes,
purposeful, right? Across the globe, for those of us who were taken from the shores, we were told to ignore the Africa and the cultural expressions. And for those who were on the continent, that the traditional cultural expressions were devalued in order to replace it with something that would promote another sensibility and
right,
another ideology, right?
right.
So that's purposeful. So by us, we in the diaspora, we do a service to our brethren and our sistren on the continent by acknowledging the traditional values, because then we elevate that which they already have, and they see the value and they share it with us, and we see the value and we share what we have maintained and held on to. And then we can that takeover is real, right? That takeover, that cultural takeover is real when we understand the insidious nature of disconnecting a people from their culture, both by moving the people outside and by brainwashing or re devaluing the culture and the tradition at home for those who are at home. It's two sides of the same coin. And so the work that people are doing now, the activists on both sides of the water, both sides of the ocean, are doing right now is elevating the culture and peeling back those layers and breaking those concretized ideologies of inferiority, of less than. And so you can hold the engineering degree, hold it, and hold it alongside the traditional teachings. And when you put those two things together, then we're
Ah,
unstoppable. Stop playing.
that part. That part. We could go on. Okay, so you just got to come back.
I'll come back.
Everybody,
It's all
put it
good.
in the
I'm at home.
chat. Put it in the chat. Tell me, tell us. Let it be known that you found this enriching. I really could go on, but I'm going to just say thank you so much for this enriching conversation. Before we go, somebody said part two. Yes, let's continue. The I was about to say Iwapole. See how much Iwapole is on my mind? But I wanted
It's
to
a good
ask,
thing.
because I know it was in the chat. Iwa, you talked about Iwa. You talked about the Fedara group. You talked about the services that you provide. How do people get in um, contact with you, et cetera, et cetera? Well, no. Let me reverse that. Full disclosure, I'm your publicist, right? Real talk, we could say that. So I'm going to
Good.
tell everybody, go to the Fedara group. And I know it's enough people in the chat that will put that in there. I don't like looking at the chat when I'm interviewing, but thefedaragroup.com is where people can get more information. There's a telephone number there, there's an email address. I only share this because you dropped so much information. You are so accessible. You're so relatable. And I know that might sound like, yeah, right, you would say that, but it's true. So thefedaragroup.com is how people can get in contact with you. And your name is on the screen. That's how people can find you on social media. So,
Absolutely. And look out for us and where we are in the community. I want to shout out Asasaya. Um, this week we're doing I'm participating in a festival that for
next
Black
week,
History Month.
next week.
This coming week, yes, this week
Yeah,
coming up.
this coming week.
Um,
Yes.
the 10th to the 16th, and the 12th. The performances are 12th to the 16th, and it's an expression of African traditional dance, music, and culture, and its reflection on revolution and resistance is this year's focus. And so we're performing. I'm actually doing a talk back with some amazing musicians, traditional djembe fola, Weedy Brema, and Bala Kuyate, a balaphone player. We're doing a talk back after their performance about traditional music and the ways that that traditional music can be used to further movements of resistance and promote revolutionary ideas and practices. So that's going to be at the Abram Center on February 14th. So it's a good place to take a date for Valentine's Day if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, Valentine's Day is not your thing, come out and still bring a date. It's a good look. So yeah, we're in the community, we're doing the things, and I'm grateful for this platform. And thank you to Marc Lamont Hill, a friend of culture, a friend of activism, a friend of Pan-Africanism. We're grateful. We're grateful.
Yeah, we're definitely grateful for you. And I was gonna say it just went out of my brain, but we'll have you back. So I'm not gonna even sweat that. But shout out to everybody who stayed with us. This was a long but enriching one on this episode of Ascending. Reach out, tell your people, watch this after. Keep your comments going on the watch page as well. You know, it can live there. Your comments, your feedback, and so forth. So I'm going to close out now, and I want to remind people to like the channel, to subscribe, to join if you're able, to comment, and what else do I want to say? I think that's it. My head is all up in the conversation we just had. So, Chief Ayanda Ifadara Clarke, thank you so much. Thank you to Marc Lamont Hill and Princess Faith Harrell, to my producers led by Drake R. Holiday, my day one, Aaron Williams and Aaron C. Lloyd and Kevin Williams. Thank you for your consistent help. So we will see you next Saturday, live, 11 a.m. Eastern, where my guest will be Mayor Raz J. Baraka. He is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. And if there's ever a continuity about arts and activism, like we just had a whole conversation about arts and activism, today, we're going to continue that and get deeper, even more so. And some of you all know, if you heard the Sonia Sanchez interview, you know our beloved mother was talking deeply about, when she kept saying Raj, she was talking about Raj J. Baraka. So shout out to the Baraka family. Shout out to Amina Baraka, and long live the life and legacy and the teachings of Amiri Baraka. So join us next Saturday. Join us every Saturday at 11 live. Tell your people, and in the meantime, stay up.